Hey, welcome to the What It Takes to Scale podcast. This is your host, Todd Westra, and I just have a question for all of you. Are you a founder or someone in charge of a sales organization where you feel like things just haven't clicked? You got all your whole team doing different things, different motions, trying to generate sales for your company or your business? If that's you, this is the episode for you. I have got the founder of Predictable Revenue on board, and just the sound of that sounds nice, doesn't it? Having predictable revenue is the bane of most companies' existence, in that so many people have so many different sales cycle processes that they set up that oftentimes you get stuck in your own way trying to build a sales cycle. And some sales cycles are short, some are long. Some people they jump into a scenario where there should be a really short cycle and they implement something really long in the effort of thinking that, hey, this is how I did it at this other company and this is how it should be. But in reality, there needs to be a much shorter sales cycle, or there needs to be a smaller team, or there needs to be dedicated teams associated with different parts of their sales processes. Predictable Revenue does just what their name says, by helping organizations set up and structure their teams in a way that people become very specialized and very efficient in what they do in pre-qualifying, qualifying, passing to closers, and getting those leads to convert to clients that you can onboard. So take it for what it's worth. If you know your sales cycle or your sales processes are having problems, you need to hear this interview. Collin releases some awesome nuggets about his company, about his processes, about his background, and how he can help people build sales cycles that grow and scale, as he has grown and scaled. After 11 years of his own business doing this particular thing, he's very good, very efficient. Admittedly claims he's not a great salesperson, but the way he leads his client journey, he makes it happen even with people who aren't the most slick salesman in the world. He can take a good salesperson, make them amazing by setting up the right cycles. I hope you enjoy this episode. Take a listen. Love to get your feedback in the comments below, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the What It Takes to Scale podcast. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and this is the place where we take CEOs and founders and we dive into their business and discover what key decisions they had to make in order to grow and scale their business. Collin, let us know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
My name's Collin. I've been the founder here at Predictable Revenue for coming up on 11 years. Before I started PR, I was a salesperson before a variety of different sales models. I sold a lot into construction, but I had the opportunity to go 0 to $1 million for a company and starting a division within a company. We went 0 to $1.5 million in revenue in the first 9 months, which was super exciting. Then I had an opportunity to that was selling kitchen cabinetry to high rises. The company was selling furniture to like the Hilton and Marriott's and things like that. And so I just got to take all that capacity and say, hey, let's build kitchens with it. And then I also had an opportunity to sell diesel generators, like custom built diesel generators for like custom tri-power solutions. So diesel, wind, solar. And yeah, we went from, 5 to 10 million roughly. And we got to explore a bunch of different sales models. And so I spent a bunch of time selling. I got to work for some big companies and some small companies. I realized I really liked working with the small companies and going like 0 to 1, 0 to 2, 1 to 5 kind of thing. And working for, the last job I had, I was working for a public company with a couple, was it 8,000 just in my division or in the subsidiary that I was a part of. And might have even been larger globally. And that was just too big. I was just a cog. I didn't like it. I didn't do well. I almost got fired on all these like little technicalities. And also the fact that after a year, I didn't care. I was 240% of quota the first year. So I was just waiting for my big fat commission check or bonus check or whatever. And then once I got that check, I started this company.
240% of quota, and that's not very common in your first year.
No.
So what you're saying is you're a really good salesman. And, honestly, I'm really curious though. When you talk about going from a salesman in a 0 to 1 situation, as opposed to that one you took from 5 to 10 million, what was the biggest difference? Like what part of that ride? I mean, those are two pretty different journeys. But what did you feel like was the biggest difference between those two journeys right there?
For sure. I'll add some clarification. In hindsight, I don't think I was a very good salesperson. I don't think I was a great salesperson. Honestly, at the time, I thought I was the shit. I thought I was the world's greatest, up and coming. I'm going to be the best closer in the whole world. In hindsight, the more I've learned about sales, the more I realized that guy is such a moron. And what I lacked.
You probably hired a few guys like that.
I've learned a lot about sales from some pretty awesome people. I think what I lacked in skill, I made up for with an abundance of hustle.
Gotcha.
So that's where I'd landed. I've certainly gotten better over the last 10 years, 11 years here at PR, but I've never. Cool. I don't know if I would be the best of the best salespeople if you were to have some sort of competition where that made sense. To answer your question about what's the difference between 0 to 1 and 1 to 10 or 5 to 10. I mean, the teams were totally different. The team was 0 to 1 was just me. And I reported to the founder and it was such an amazing and awful experience at the same time because we went 0. I closed $1.5 million deal. And then it was in construction in 2007. And so was it 2007, 2008? Basically
that's like the worst.
Summer 2007 or 8, the economy, especially in construction, started to see a big pullback. The banks were pulling back. Yes. The company didn't have enough cash to get them through a pinch point. I left at the end of the summer and I went and had to walk into this big construction company that took a chance on me and say, hey, listen, I don't think we're going to be able to build these kitchens for you. You need to find somebody else. And I left in August. I had to walk away from a 10% commission check on that hypothetical deal that was never going to come through. And the company was bankrupt by the end of the year. So, it was a great learning experience, but
well, moving forward to your business. That does. I've been in similar situations and I feel your pain, but let's talk about your growth. Tell me about what you guys do at Predictable Revenue.
It's really, at the highest level, we help entrepreneurs go to market. So the way we do that is using sales development. That's the roots of the business. So sales development is basically a prospecting methodology that recommends you specialize your sales roles. So you should have companies that follow the methodology or the process, have dedicated salespeople for prospecting, and they have dedicated people for closing, dedicated for managing accounts. It's a model that makes sense for some size businesses and not for maybe smaller businesses where your not smaller businesses, but smaller deal sizes. If you got like a $1,000 to $5,000 a year ACV, you're probably going to get a better lift by just having a full cycle rep. But for companies that have that sort of $25,000 to $100,000 deal size, you can get quite a big lift out of the specialization. And so
interesting.
Yeah, we help companies generally are helping startups build their first go-to-market channel beyond word of mouth.
I gotcha. How do you approach that though? I mean, when you got generally in that size of business, you deal with a lot of founder-based sales teams and things like that. Like, how do you talk them out of being their director of sales and saying, no, this is probably a better model for you?
The one thing that I've learned in all the time selling is I can't talk people out of anything. We share a lot of our content, and if people like the model and they're attracted to the model and they want help implementing it, they come to us. And so I don't have to convince anybody. And if I'm on the phone trying to convince somebody, there's this I'm talking to myself in the process, and I'm like, you're going to lose this deal, so you may as well cut bait and save everybody's time.
That's really smart sales advice. I mean, really, if your product if they're not coming to you because they're already interested in your product, you're going to have a harder time closing that deal.
I mean, yes and no. I think there's the difference between trying to get somebody being ready to buy, or being the right person to buy, or believing that your model or that your approach to solving their problem is the right approach. I'm happy to work with people that are the right accounts, they're the right people, but they're not ready to buy yet. It doesn't make the equation in their head or in their sheet doesn't make sense to buy right now. But the thing that as a salesperson that I've stopped doing is try and change people's minds about how they see the world. You know, if their worldview is very different of, we shouldn't specialize sales roles, great. Then why are we talking? You know?
Right.
I won't waste your time trying to convince you you're wrong. You don't have to waste your time trying to convince me that I'm wrong. Like, you know, let's just go our separate ways.
That's very cool.
Very lazy.
It's really, really smart. I mean, there's a lot of fish in the sea. Well, my mom always told me anyway. Well, very cool. So as you've grown your company, I mean, you've been in this for 11 years now on your own. And after 11 years, you learned a lot of lessons. And on that journey, there's high points and low points. What would you say is your favorite part, the best high point you've hit in trying to grow and scale your own company?
There's a couple. I think it depends on how you look at it. There's a few people that have started that, like, we pulled out of companies that were not great companies, and they came to us and they really enjoyed the culture here, and they spent 3 years with us,
right? And
now they're off with their like dream job. You know, they came, they got their training with PR, spent 3 years here, and then they like doubled their salary. Like, those are always crappy to lose as a founder, as somebody who liked those people. But it's just amazing to be part of that journey. Like, one of the first people I hired started off like, he was driving a truck for a service center, driving the van that like picked up people and dropped them off. Now he's an engineer making huge amounts of money, doing like stuff with Elixir. And like, that's probably the most rewarding piece is the people, is the culture. It's fun to put a big chunk of money in the bank, you know, but that's not happening every year. And I think the more you focus on that, the less it's not really important. Even though when I was trying to get to $1 million, I thought getting to $1 million in ARR was the only thing that mattered. Then I get to $1 million, I'm like, okay, getting to 2 million is the only thing that matters. And now you're at 5 and you're like, okay, getting to 10 is the only thing that matters. And you're like, oh wait, none of this really matters. It's the people that are the kind of steady state.
You take a step back.
Yeah.
Right. Take a step back and you're like, oh wait, I've got a family I also love and need to take care of too. They need my time as well.
So it's the internal people and seeing them and their careers and move on. And then it's the customers. And like, we have a number of customers that have closed millions of dollars, or they're closed their first $1 million from us. And like, the members of the $1 Million Club are just like, that's the most rewarding. There's one guy in particular I'm thinking of, and like, he was almost in tears when he told me, because they were doing a few $100,000 a year. I think he was paying for us on his own personal credit card, and it was like his dad's business. And they were selling like, it was an odd business. They sold like contracts to hospitals to manage like vending machines, but they didn't manage it. They just like helped negotiate a better price on their vending machines, and they could save hospitals like $100,000 a year. And then they take a small cut of that. Yeah.
What?
And I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And he's like, yeah, I think it will. And they've closed $1 million with us. I'm like, dang, like, that's amazing.
That's
so,
cool.
you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I get to help entrepreneurs succeed. That's really fun and rewarding.
I mean, I'd have to agree. I mean, anytime that your product is helping other people achieve some level of success, it's definitely feel good. Feel good. Now, what about the flip side? I mean, as you hit certain walls in your growth, I know you hit them. What do you do? Like, what's been an example of a wall that you've hit that has just been like, ah?
So I think the first one, like, I started this 11 years ago. It was actually a CRM company. And the first wall was like, nobody wanted to buy the CRM company.
Really?
It was a super stupid niche. We thrashed around with a few different ideas, and like learning how to do customer development interviews and listen to customers and then turn that feedback into a product was the first real wall, because I spent 18 months selling a product that I thought was a good idea and nobody wanted to buy. Well, one customer paid for it. And then when we finally figured out how to build how to listen to customers, which is shocking that I had to learn to listen, but you know, my wife and mom probably wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, it's not shocking.
Then we built a product. and we pooched. I say the engineering, but it wasn't the engineering team's fault. It was management's fault, mostly me, for just really poor decisions on what to prioritize. The moral of that story is I just push for feature development, as opposed to like focusing on refactoring. So our customers could actually use the product. And what the result was, we went 0 to 60K in monthly recurring revenue in like 2-3 months. And then 60 to 0 took us about 18. So yeah,
dang,
that was a wall.
Yeah.
And that was like a software product that we had built and spent tons of money on. And now it exists on a hard drive in my closet over there. It's my $4 million hard drive.
But the demand just wasn't there.
No, the demand was there. We just couldn't keep the servers alive. Like it was a tool like Sales Laughter Outreach.
Interesting.
The goal was to send emails, and when you would click send on an email, it could take a week to send that email, which is unacceptable.
What?
It comes down to the complexity of the engineering and how we built it. And it started off as the fork of the CRM product. And I always pushed the team to say, no, just build. And we never took the time to refactor in the early days after we built the MVP to say, hey, this thing is how it works. When I do it again, I'll build the MVP and then I'll go back and say, okay, now that we've got this proof, we're going to take 3 months and refactor it or build a new one that's designed for scale as opposed to rapid iteration, because those two things are very, very different.
Okay. Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, is what advice do you give to someone else who's dealing with a challenge like that, where they launch with this great intention, like this product is going to change the world, and then it doesn't quite work out as well as you hoped it would, and you've got to face the reality of, crud, I got to retool this or repurpose my team or do something different. What advice do you have to give people like that?
I think the most general advice would be talk to your customers. I think anytime I've run into a tough spot, whether I couldn't figure out churn, whether sales were slowing down, customer development interviews, day in the life interviews with people that are not affiliated with the brand, that don't know me, aren't from my network.
Yeah.
And running a customer development interview, not with a slant, but like, hey, tell me what you do, what tools you use here, tell me what you do there. And then you set the context, and then you ask the question, which is like, if I could solve any problem for you related to X, what would it be? And then you just shut the hell up and you listen. And I think this is something that that founders don't do enough. And my experience here has been doing it myself a couple of times, where I built my ideas and I'm like, why does nobody want to buy my stupid construction focused CRM company? Oh, it's because it sucks and I didn't listen to customers. Oh, wow. Shocking. And
how I'm curious. I mean, how many founders do you come across that just do that exact same
all
thing?
Of them.
I mean, they literally are just like, everyone's going to love this.
Almost, I think, no judgment here, because I did it at least 2 or 3 times, but I'd say almost every founder probably does that their first time, maybe their second time. And slowly, if you survive the first and second times, some people I'm sure get it right off the hop because they're smarter than I am, but it took me a couple of times. And I've worked with probably 1,000 plus founders, building go-to-market channels or advising them on how to build a sales development team, how to figure out product market fit. And I'd say a lot of companies, most people I talk to haven't done sufficient customer development to truly understand their market. And, there's one thing to have like the minimum sellable product and to like get a little bit of revenue. It's another thing to fully, deeply understand the market, the qualities in the market, how to target people, how to build the list, what channels are profitable to reach those people. Like those are all things that go into like the product market fit and then the go-to-market fit. 100%. And I think a lot of people skip right to starting to add customer development channels once they've got the MVP. Totally. And you're wasting inefficient go-to-market dollars. And that's, companies don't just die, they kill themselves by.
They do. They generally do. I would say that I agree with you probably 110%, because truthfully it's not enough just to build an MVP that you sell a couple widgets on. It's the fact of, hey, how many of your customers are actually telling their friends about your product because they think they need it, like they really love your product. And if you're not getting that, if you're not getting referrals from your customers, if you're not talking to your customers saying, hey, what could I do to tweak this and make this better? Are there any other problems I could solve for you with this tool, or are you just going somewhere else for that? Then you know whether to niche down, you know whether to go a little bit broader, you know whether to, there's so much you can learn from talking to your customers. And I love the fact that you make that such an important piece, because once you know your avatar, it's a lot easier to talk to them. You know what I mean?
And I would almost refrain from saying once you know your customers, because this is something that I try and do on an annual basis. Is I both have I do 3 things every year. And it's not like programmed into the schedule. It just seems to happen. Every year, one of our AEs takes a holiday and I fill in, I sit in his role for a month. Every year I take a month and I try and talk to every single one of our customers. And then every year I take a month and I try and talk to 20 or 30 companies or people that are not my customers, not followers of the brand, just random people that I've reached out to understand what the state of sales development or state of sales kind of looks like, feels like, what challenges they're running into. And so those kind of 3 things,
love it.
I try to do those 3 things to keep me in shape, I guess.
I love it.
In touch.
No, it's not just keeping you in shape. It's, I always challenge my clients to think of the last 10 companies or 20 companies you've onboarded. Who are the 3 that you really liked working with and they love your product? And who are the 3 that absolutely were not happy, or they terminated the relationship or what have you? What was the difference? And just stop attracting those ones and go after these awesome ones that you really enjoyed working with, right? I love it. Love it. Well, Collin, this has been awesome. I want to ask you real quick, is there someone in your network that you want to give a little shout out to, that at those moments where you're feeling like super frustrated, hitting that wall, who inspired you to keep moving?
I've got a group of people that I probably go to regularly. So I got three buddies in one group and then kind of 2 singles. Be Matt, James, and Calv in the one group. They're the early buddies from Launch Academy, which is a co-working space that we started working, or that we all kind of got our companies started. Those are the 3. And then there's Calv, Carl, and Kareem. Wow. Nice alliteration there. And those 3 I keep in touch with on a monthly basis for each of them. And so they each have their strengths, but it's more of the power of just talking to another entrepreneur once a month, or like once a week, and just saying, you got that full circle. This sucks this week. Right. You're there to tell them it's going to be okay. They're there to tell you it's going to be okay. Because sometimes you need that.
It's lonely. It's lonely being a founder, lonely heading the ship. You know what I mean? So I love that. That is some great advice. Well, Collin, I appreciate your time today. This has been a fantastic interview. If people want to get a hold of you or follow you or subscribe to your podcast and learn more about how you solve their problems, what do they do?
Best place to find us is on LinkedIn. Collin Stewart, Collin with 2 L's, Stewart, Stewart. You can find me there. We're also on YouTube. And I think I got a newsletter that comes out that's paired with our newsletter that shares all our content and weekly thoughts. And so it's either, you can find the Predictable Revenue podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. We got some YouTube specific content that's coming out there. And so LinkedIn, YouTube, those are the places.
Love it. Those are good spots. Hey, I appreciate it again, and we will catch up with you soon. Great. Good luck in everything.
Thanks for having me on, Todd, and good luck with the rest of the podcast.
Okay, we're back. How was it? I loved that interview. There were so many golden nuggets in that interview. I just loved the prospect of it. Sales is not a one size fits all in every organization, and you have got to understand your best sales cycle and your best product for the right type of client you want, and understanding who your best client is. Like, these are 3 golden nuggets that most people don't think about often enough. How many founders take a month of the year and just start taking account calls from your clients and understanding their needs and understanding what they want to do? This is some good advice. I love this interview, and I know that Collin is out there to help businesses probably like yours. Give him a call, take a look at what he's doing, and get aligned with him, because it could help you make that step from where you're at now to that step to where you want to be. The goal of this podcast is to help all of you learn what it takes to scale. And this is an amazing episode that focuses on one aspect of your revenue engine, your sales cycle. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave some comments and share this episode with others. We love getting shares. So share this episode with someone you know that needs this tip on what it takes to grow and scale their business.